If you can hear this, then we have both arrived at our ends. I kept my promise, the 20-year war is finished, and you, the third daughter, have ended me. The voice belongs to Nezcato, and she is already dead. The recording is her last move, set to play only after her execution in a hangar full of pilots. She asked to be sacrificed, demanded it, in fact, over a blood-packed handshake with the woman who would eventually hold the blade. That request, "Let my blood christen your new fighters," was the key to a trap 10 years in the making, and the third daughter, desperate to save her crumbling empire, walked straight into it. This is a novel told from the wrong side of the grave, where the narrator's death is not a spoiler but the engine. Nez is no martyr and certainly no hero. She is a saboteur who weaponized her own crippled body, her own execution, her own stress response in the final seconds of life, because that physiological surge is what triggers a kill switch embedded in every pilot's implant. The question driving every scene is not whether she'll survive, but how thoroughly she has already rigged the board. What follows is a claustrophobic, queer space opera, a political thriller pressured into the corridors of a single warship, where the only battlefield is the toxic intimacy between two women who might have loved each other in another life. To read it is to watch someone burn down a house while standing inside it and then hand you the recording so you'll know exactly how she lit the match. You can feel the spite in every line A.D. Sui writes without forgiving anyone. Episode 1: The Blood Pact and the Implant Game. If you can hear this, then we have both arrived at our ends. I kept my promise as asked. The 20-year uprising, the breakaway systems that had been bleeding the rule dry, the war that outlasted every commander who touched it, I ended it. 6 months. That was all it took to break a rebellion that had survived 2 decades of the rule's best minds. And you, the third daughter of the rule, eternal rightful, both beautiful and deadly, have ended me. I did not see your face when it happened. I do not know if your composure cracked, if your hands shook, if you wept or smiled or felt nothing at all. I was not there to witness what you became in that final second. But I know you kept your promise too, you, whose word is law, who said you would sacrifice me to bless your victory, who never once lied to me about what the end would be. You meant every word. Before we reach that moment, before the hangar and the blade and the pilots dropping around you, I need you to understand how we got there. You know the shape of it, but you do not know the weight. You do not know what I held back, what I planted, what I became in the years between losing everything and finding myself at your dinner table with blood on my palm. So let us begin where you first touched my life, not at your dinner table, not in the medbay when you reset my shoulder, but earlier, when you decided I was worth retrieving from the squalor of Oren's industrial slums, where I had been hiding for 10 years, waiting for someone to come and use me again. Shay comes knocking. Shay knocked on my door because Shay always does the knocking. He had been watching me for 3 weeks, rotating shifts with his intelligence and investigations boys, taking unflattering photographs from the flashing billboard across the street. I watched him on the cameras I had installed months prior, their silhouettes scurrying up the stairwell, tasers drawn back to back like they were breaching an active shooter situation. The coffee pot was still warm. I had time. I poured the entire pot over my CPU, watching the schematics and code dissolve into brown sludge. When his knock came, I was ready. I opened the door. He looked older. 10 years will do that. The last time I had seen Shay Linden, we were cadets on Iran, young enough to believe the rules propaganda about unity and purpose. He had been my friend, the kind who knows how you sleep, and what you eat, and what you are afraid of in the dark. Now he wore the crisp uniform of an intelligence captain, and his eyes held the careful blankness of a man who has learned to suppress what he feels about his job. "Nez," he said. "Shay." I leaned against the doorframe. "The third daughter sent you personally?" "I'm flattered." He did not deny it. He did not smile. He reached for my arm, and I let him take it. Behind him, 3 other agents stood with weapons drawn, tense as if I might produce a squadron from my 2-room apartment. "We can do this the easy way," he said. "There is no easy way with the rule," I replied, but I did not resist. I had spent 10 years waiting. Resistance was never part of the plan. The hood came down over my head, and I felt the cold bite of handcuffs against my wrists. Someone guided me down the stairs, I know because I counted them. 5 flights, the same number I had watched them climb on my monitors. When we reached street level, his voice came close to my ear. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and then the needle went into my neck and everything dissolved into chemical fog. The sedative kept the panic at bay. My heart rate never climbed above resting. even as I felt myself being lifted, carried, transported. I could not track the time, I could not track the distance, but I knew where I was going, to the third daughter, who had finally, after 10 years, decided I was useful enough to retrieve. The implant at the nape. I woke to the sound of Shay's voice and the cold pressure of metal against the nape of my neck. Stay still. I obeyed by habit. No matter how much I had tried to rinse the soldier out of me, it had never quite washed away. The room was dim, the hum of engines unmistakable. I was aboard a ship. Shay sat across from me, a tablet in his hands. He listed my crimes with the detachment of a man reading a grocery list. Desertion, treason, conspiracy to aid breakaway systems, unauthorized possession of classified schematics. The list was long and inventive. The rules bureaucracy had been busy during my decade of obscurity. "You've been busy," I said, my voice slurred from the sedative, "and you've been hiding." He set down the tablet. "We found the coffee-soaked mess you left behind. Very thorough. Old habits." He reached forward and pressed a finger against the base of my skull. I flinched. The metal was cold, but the pressure was worse. I could feel it, embedded just beneath the skin, a small hard lump that had not been there before. "Implant," he said. "Standard issue pain compliance device. Intelligence and Investigations prefers a more aggressive model, but the third daughter insisted on something more nuanced. I laughed, and it hurt. That's one word for it. He pressed a button on a small remote, and the left side of my body convulsed. The shock ran from the implant at my nape down through my shoulder, my arm, my leg. I vomited onto the floor. The taste of bile mixed with the chemical residue of the sedative, and for a moment I could not breathe. "That was the lowest setting," he said, his voice flat. "The commander wants your cooperation, not your suffering. But if you refuse, Intelligence and Investigations will take over, and they are not so gentle." I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. My left arm hung useless, still twitching from the residual shock. "What does she want?" "She wants you to optimize her fighters. The war is not going well, despite our superior technology, despite our numbers, despite everything the rule has invested, the breakaways are winning. Riesel has decided you are the solution, and if I refuse," he held up the remote, "then we keep shocking you until you agree." I looked at him, at this man who had once been my friend, who had shared meals and stories and the intimate boredom of military training. He did not look away. "Fine," I said. "I'll look at your fighters." The hangar and the Iron Fox's return. The flagship's hangar was vast, a cavern of steel and coolant mist. Fighters lined the walls in perfect rows, each one wrapped in a constant wash of coolant to prevent the engines from overheating. The smell of ozone and machine oil hung thick in the air. Technicians in blue coveralls swarmed around the craft, running diagnostics, replacing parts, shouting to each other over the constant hum of machinery. I was issued standard issue blues, a uniform without insignia, marking me as rankless, neither soldier nor technician, just a body with a function. On my shoulder, dulled enough to be barely visible, was the monitor tracking my every move. Shay had been assigned as my handler, his demotion evident in the tight set of his jaw. Rizal had taken notice of his incompetence in the hangar, and now he was paying for it. A young private named Cart was assigned to escort me. He was eager and nervous, the kind of soldier who has never seen combat outside a simulation. "This is your fighter," he said, gesturing to a craft at the end of the row. "Riesel wants you to analyze it, find ways to improve performance." I ran my hand along the hull. The fighter had a constant coolant wash to fix overheating. The charge was in the thousands, recharging on firing. The power draw was inefficient. "Your tech is better than the breakaways," I said, not looking at him. "So why are you losing?" Cart stiffened. "The propaganda from the breakaway system suggests I'm not asking about propaganda. I'm asking you." He did not answer. The question hung between us, unanswered and uncomfortable. Then the klaxon sounded, and everything changed. The Iron Fox was returning. Hundreds of posters plastered the hangar walls, each one bearing Kaya's face in heroic profile, her long black hair spilling past her shoulders, her eyes blazing with the confidence of a natural killer. "Iron Fox, 100 kills," read one banner. "Victory Eternal," read another. I wanted to burn every single one. The fighter descended through the atmospheric shield, a sleek craft with custom modifications. The cockpit hatch slid open, and even from 50 meters away, I recognized the figure climbing out. Kaya had always known how to make an exit. The crowd roared. She pulled off her helmet, and her hair cascaded down in defiance of every regulation code in the rules handbook. She surveyed the hangar with the satisfied smile of a predator who has just finished a successful hunt. 20 direct hits, 15 kills, and 2 full-sized cruisers. Today, we drink to the Rule Eternal. Rule Eternal, the crowd thundered back. Shay grabbed my arm. Nez, don't, but I was already moving. The public confrontation. I pushed through the crowd, past the cheering techs and the saluting officers, until I was standing in front of her. Kaya's smile faltered when she saw me. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by something that might have been guilt. Nez. Her voice was softer now. I didn't know you were. I slapped her hand away before she could reach for me. The crowd went silent. You left me to die. You ejected. You saved yourself and left me in the cockpit to burn. Her face drained of color. Nez, it wasn't 6 months in the hospital. 6 months of surgeries and rehab and learning to use my left arm again. And you never came. Not once. You never wrote. You never called. You never even sent a message through someone else. Why? And I couldn't. You couldn't face me. I stepped closer. You couldn't face what you did. She opened her mouth to respond, and I kneed her in the stomach. She doubled over, gasping, and the crowd surged forward. Someone grabbed me from behind, and then the shock hit the implant at my nape, firing into my nervous system. My left shoulder dislocated with a wet pop. I screamed. Shay's voice was in my ear. I told you to stay calm. Through the haze of pain, I saw Kaya straighten up, her face flushed with humiliation and something else, fear. Because standing at the edge of the hangar, watching everything with the cold calculation of a glacier, was the third daughter herself, nThis Rizal. The shoulder and the dinner invitation. The medbay smelled of antiseptic and old blood. A trainee botched my stitches while Shay sat in front of me, wallowing in the consequences of his incompetence. The door opened, and Rizal entered. She was smaller than I expected child-sized hands, a slight frame that seemed almost fragile in the harsh medical lighting, but her presence filled the room. The air changed when she walked in, became heavier, more charged. She did not acknowledge Shay. She walked straight to me, and before I could react, her hands were on my arm. One clamped around my wrist, the other cradled my upper arm. Her fingers were cold, rigid as steel. This is going to hurt, MS. Kato, she whispered, close enough that I could smell her hair. Honey, the expensive kind, made by living insects. Try to keep quiet. Her glacial eyes drilled into mine, devoid of compassion and malice alike. Then she wrenched my shoulder back into place. The pain was blinding. I did not scream. I would not give her the satisfaction. She released me and stepped back, studied my face as if looking for something, a crack, a tell, a sign of weakness. She did not find it. You will join me for dinner tonight, she said, and it was not a question. I will send your invitation. Then she was gone, and the medbay felt emptier for her absence. The invitation arrived an hour later, sealed with wax and bearing the insignia of the Rizal family. A formal dinner. I had no choice but to attend. Footnote. The blood pact. Her quarters were sparse but elegant, decorated with the kind of austerity that comes from generational power. She sat at the head of a small table, her white dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar, her uniform blues draped over the back of her chair. Sit, she said. I sat. She poured wine, real wine, not the synthetic swill served in the mess, and pushed a glass toward me. I did not drink. You have been watching me for 10 years, I said. You knew where I was the whole time. Of course. She took a sip of her own wine. You were too valuable to waste. Even crippled, even hiding in that squalid apartment, you were one of the finest tactical minds the Rule ever produced. I simply waited until you were useful enough to retrieve. And now? Now the war is not going well. She set down her glass. The breakaways are winning. My best pilots are dying. My fleet is bleeding resources. I need someone who can see what I cannot see, who can find the weakness in my forces and correct it before it kills us all. She reached for a fork, a heavy silver piece, ornate and antique, and without warning drove it into the table between us. The wood splintered. I did not flinch. I have 6 months, she said. 6 months to end this war, or the Rule will fall. If you help me win, I will give you what no one else can offer. And what is that? She withdrew a small knife from her belt, curved, jeweled, the kind of weapon meant for ceremony, not combat. She drew the blade across her palm, and blood welled up, dark red against her pale skin. But, legacy. You have spent 10 years rotting in obscurity, forgotten by everyone who once knew your name. I am offering you the chance to be remembered, Hold me end this war in 6 months, and your blood will christen the new fighters that will carry the rules banner for generations." She extended her bleeding hand. I looked at her, this strange, ruthless, dying woman who commanded fleets and terrified admirals and still somehow found time to invite a disgraced former pilot to dinner and speak of legacy as if any of it mattered. And I thought, this is what I have been waiting for. I took the knife from her hand and drew it across my own palm. The pain was sharp and clarifying. I clasped her hand in mine, felt our blood mingle warm and sticky between our fingers. 6 months, I said. I will end your war, and when it is done, you will sacrifice me to bless your new fighters. Her eyes widened, the first crack I had seen in her composure. Why would you ask her that? Because I am tired. I have been tired for 10 years. Let me rest when this is over. Let my blood mean something. She studied my face in the candlelight. Her head tilted slightly. Then she spoke, low and private, almost clinical. If not for your unfortunate accident, you could have been quite beautiful. I did not react. I pulled my hand back, wrapped it in a napkin, changed the subject. But the line lodged in me like a splinter. She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded. Agreed. The blood pact was sealed. Workspace and the shower. They gave me a workspace and a fighter to modify and enough surveillance cameras to film a documentary. Riesel provided schematics outdated, incomplete, but workable. I spent days poring over data points, analyzing shot ratios, tracking kill counts, finding the patterns that would reveal the weakness she needed me to fix. In the shower, I replayed her words, "If not for your unfortunate accident, you could have been quite beautiful." I slammed my fist into the tile until my knuckles bled. I swung from my back using momentum and gravity to make contact, and my fist came undone after the second strike. I did not have the muscle tone to close it properly anymore. The accident. That was what they called it, what Kaya called it, what Shay called it, what Riesel called it. As if my crippled arm and my scarred body and my 10 years of hiding were the result of bad luck. Not the calculated abandonment of a woman who had promised to be my co-pilot and left me to burn. I swallowed the anger, stored it, let it fossilize into something harder. When an officer tried to force me into standard issue blues, I refused. I demanded coveralls, proper ones, the kind worn by techs who actually worked on fighters instead of shuffling paperwork. The officer blustered and threatened, but I held my ground until Rizal herself had to intervene through the earpiece. "Give her what she wants," her voice came through, tinny but unmistakable. "I need her functional, not compliant." The officer's face flushed with humiliation, but he obeyed. I had tested her limits and found them wider than expected. She valued me enough to accommodate my defiance, at least for now. Catch and release. Someone gave my bad shoulder a jovial pat. "It's you." That is never a greeting I want to hear. It was the ginger tech from before Cart this time, with matching dark circles under his eyes. He was smiling like he had won the lottery, but was tired and at the end of his shift. "What the hell is going on?" "This way." He kept hold of my shoulder and guided me along the far wall. "They are playing catch and release." "Who are they?" He stared at me like I was a recruit who just asked about vacation pay. "Riesel and the Iron Fox." He led me to a secluded spot by the far wall of the hangar. On the opposite end, a screen showed two fighter signatures chasing each other through open space. Kaya was faster. Riesel was always one step ahead, her trajectory bending before Kaya's ever locked. "Oh, she is stacking her breath," I said. "For a deceleration trick." Cart nodded. "She does that." Kaya broke the game's rules and fired live torpedoes. The screen flared white. The crowd murmured. Then Rizal's voice crackled over comms, thin and weak. "Morningstar to Mother. Seems I fried my camera there for a second. Iron Fox, what say you we call this one a draw?" "I don't think I have another one of these in me today." "Yes, ma'am." Kaya spat the words out and threw a salute, as if someone was there to see it. When Morningstar landed, Rizal stumbled out of the cockpit, with blood streaming from her nose to her chin, her face a mask of terror before she remembered to compose it. She dismissed the crowd with a wave, shared a tense private word with Kaya, then staggered away. She had not planned that maneuver. She had not thought she would survive it. I saw the fear in her eyes before she buried it. The third daughter was not invincible. Kaya's 55%. When the 36-hour cycle restarted, I lay on my cot and listened to the clatter of magnetic soles on the other side of the wall. I learned Kaya's flight patterns. I watched her helmet recordings, tracked her movements, analyzed her decisions in the heat of combat, and I found what I was looking for. Her accuracy was 55%. A highest kill count in the fleet, yes, but only because she was fast, not because she was precise. She reacted to her enemies instead of anticipating them. She was always half a heartbeat behind. Shay appeared at my doorway. You have been at this for hours. Kaya and Rizal are sleeping together, I said, not looking up. He went quiet. I do not want to hear about Kaya. Then do not ask. I kept scrolling. The data was relentless, pilot after pilot, ship after ship, all showing the same pattern. Reactive, slow, half a second between seeing and firing. Only Rizal flew differently, anticipating, intercepting, never chasing. I stood, grabbed my tablet, and walked toward her quarters. Kaya answered the door nude, her olive skin still flushed. I need to speak with Rizal, I said, keeping my voice flat. Her expression flickered. She stepped aside. The Dragonfly pitch. Rizal lounged on an antique armchair across the room, wearing a bored expression and an unbuttoned white dress shirt. She swung one leg over the other, and her uniform blues looked more exquisite than any silk. Kato, took you long enough? I did not sit. KS accuracy is 55%. She has the highest kill count because of her speed, but her reaction time is suboptimal. She responds to threats instead of anticipating them. Kaya's face twisted with anger, but Rizal held up a hand. Leave us, she said, but now. Kaya left, all flounce and wounded pride. The door closed. You fly like a dragonfly, I said. You anticipate your prey's movements. You intercept. You do not chase. The other pilots, Kaya included, fly like predators chasing prey. They are always half a second behind. Her expression did not change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Interest. Hunger. Go on. I reached into my sleeve and pulled out a torn corner of paper, creased and worn a sketch I had drawn years ago in my apartment and memorized. A filament no thicker than a hair, a node the size of a fingernail, a biometric seal. I slid it across the table. She picked it up between two fingers and turned it over. A neural implant, I said. It feeds camera and instrument data directly to the pilot's motor cortex, bypassing conscious reaction time. It would give every pilot the kind of anticipatory flight you execute naturally. The Dragonfly does not chase. It calculates where the prey will be and arrives there first. A neural implant. She held the sketch up to the light. That is a significant risk. Not if you test it properly. Not if you use a willing subject. And where would I find a willing subject? I did not answer. I did not need to. She studied me for a long moment, and then she did something unexpected. She reached for a small vial on the side table eye drops. When she tilted her head back to administer them, I saw her neck. Blue veins visible beneath the skin, spreading like frost across her throat and up toward her eyelids. She caught me looking. I am dying, she said, her voice flat. My spinal implants are poisoning my bones. I have perhaps 6 months left, maybe less. She set down the vial. My sister Aira killed herself when she realized what the implants were doing to her. Her memories were stripped from her brain and implanted into mine. I carry her inside me, a ghost riding my nervous system, and the implants that make it possible are killing me. She looked at me with those glacial eyes. I have 6 months to end this war, and then I will be forgotten. My sisters will not remember me. The rule will move on to the next daughter, the next commander, the next figurehead. But if I win this war, if I secure the rule's dominance, my name will outlast my body. I crouched down so that my eyes were level with hers. The Dragonfly implant. Let me build it. Let me test it. It will give your pilots the edge they need. And in exchange, nothing. You have already promised me my death. That is enough. She reached out and gripped my bad shoulder, the one she had dislocated and reset, the one that still ached from the shocker assaults. Her grip was firm, almost painful. No more formalities, no more secrets between us. If we do this, we do it as equals. Agreed. She pulled herself to her feet, using my shoulder as leverage. When she stood, she swayed. I caught her arm. She did not pull away. I will hold you to that, mess, Kato. The bathroom floor. 3 hours later, Rizal collapsed. She vomited blood into the sink while I held her hair back. The bathroom was cold. The sound of her heaving filled the small space, and I felt the weight of her forehead against my palm. No one knows, she gasped between heaves. No one can know. If the fleet learns I am dying, morale will collapse. I understand, do you? She straightened up, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Do you understand what it means to carry a dead woman's memories? To feel her despair and her love and her guilt while your own body slowly kills you? I saw it then bright and fast as a cockpit alarm. Chaos ejection lever, the canopy seal breaking. Then I blinked, and I was back in the bathroom. Yes, I said, I think I do. Something shifted between us. Some wall came down. She looked at me with something other than calculation, something rawer and more fragile. Then help me. Help me end this before I die. The discovery before the fall. I returned to my workstation. The data points were still scrolling across my screenshot ratios, kill counts, the endless arithmetic of a losing war. I pulled up my files to cross-reference Chaos' last engagement. A screen was open that I had not left open. I stopped. My stomach dropped. The permissions log showed Rizal's clearance. She had been inside my storage, inside my schematics, digging through the layers I thought I had buried deep enough. She had found the prototype. The interrogation did not start because I broke. It started because I was too good at hiding what I did not want found, and she was too desperate to let me keep hiding it. The interrogation. I spent 3 days pulling shot ratios from every ship in the quadrant, crashing systems and rebuilding them. When I finally presented my findings to Rizal, her face was unreadable. Unquote. The evidence was damning. Every pilot in the fleet had declining kill ratios. The war was not stalling because of bad tactics or inferior tech. It was stalling because the pilots could not react fast enough. Interesting, she said, and then she wiped a bloody nose on her trousers. That was when I knew. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was stronger than it looked. You have been hiding something from me. I searched your personal storage. I found schematics you did not share. I did not deny it. The coffee had destroyed my CPU, but not my backups. I had been too clever. Cleverness always leaves fingerprints. What is the implant? Rizal asked. The one in the schematics. What does it do? I opened my mouth to lie, and then the hood came down. When I woke, I was in an interrogation room, zip-tied to a chair. Shay stood over me with a heat knife that could cut through Starship hull. The zip tie was too tight. The circulation in my right hand was already slowing, fingers tingling and then going numb. Her right hand is losing blood flow, he said. 2 hours before the muscle damage becomes permanent. 4 hours before you lose the hand entirely. Shay, tell me about the implant, nThis. I told him about the neural translator, about the Dragonfly concept, about the prototype whose sketch was now in Rizal's possession. I told him it was designed to bridge the gap between perception and action, to give pilots reaction times no human could achieve naturally. And then when the commander entered the room, Rizal herself, when she scratched her nail along my bound wrist and waited for me to flinch, when I did not flinch, I told her the final piece. And, I want to be the test subject. Put the implant in me. Let me fly again. Her eyes narrowed. You are not a pilot. You have not flown in 10 years. I was a pilot. I was the best pilot in my class, before Kaya ejected and left me to die. I'm not a failed pilot. I got fucked up. I got discarded. The implant will give me back what I lost. She considered this. I watched her weigh the risks, the benefits, the unknowns. She had already opened herself to me more than she had to anyone else. I had seen her vomit blood, had held her hair, had heard her confession about Ira and the implants and the slow death eating her from within. Fine, she said. You will be the rat. Shay cut the zip tie. Blood rushed back into my hand, agonizing and sweet. I was released to the showers, my wrists wrapped in bandages, my body exhausted and my mind racing. And in the shower, with the hot water running over my face and the cameras watching my every move, I smiled. My face hid behind my wet hair so the officer would not see it. The Dragonfly was not just an enhancement.